All right, so the purpose of this video is going to be showing you how to enter Shopify Sales into QuickBooks Online. And an overview of the method that we're going to be using is we're going to be using journal entries to accomplish this. So we're going to create a journal entry template in QuickBooks Online. And the way this is going to work using this journal entry is this going to allow you to enter these sales at any interval that you want. I usually just do once a month at the end of every month, put in the sales for the entire month. And the reason that works is because we're going to be utilizing clearing accounts, they're called, or holding accounts, however you want to think of them. And essentially what we're going to be doing, because you need to have your debits and credits in your bank account being correct in order to do bank reconciliations every month. And specifically in this case, the debits to your bank account. What this workflow allows us to do is enter in the entire sales for the month, because what we're going to be doing to offset these sales is we're just going to be putting the debit side of things we're going to have multiple clearing accounts in this case, but let's just say for now a Shopify asset clearing account on our balance sheet. And what that allows us to do is put all those funds in there for the entire month. And then whenever those deposits are actually hitting our bank account, then all we have to do is transfer those funds from that holding account into our bank account. So this allows us to capture the sales for the entire month in just one journal entry, but it also allows us to keep our debits into our bank account accurate so that we can do bank reconciliations during every month. I see sometimes people try to just utilize the deposits. Let's say Shopify, for example, just deposits into the bank account and just categorize those as sales. But whenever you do that, you don't capture everything in terms of refunds and returns, sales tax liability collected, things like that. But that's why I like using this workflow so much. So we'll go through, and I want to try to cover everything I can in this video. We'll go through the entire kind of creation process with this, how I like to do it with my clients who I'm using this exact workflow for entering their Shopify sales into their QuickBooks Online. We're going to go over first finding all the needed reports that you're going to need to be looking at on a monthly basis. And we're going to be using kind of a worksheet here to put in different steps and everything for you to reference in the future. So you can kind of have a checklist whenever you're entering these sales on a month-to-month basis. But yeah, so we're going to look up all the reports first, and then we're going to use those reports and look at all the categories and things. And then we're going to use that to list out and enter all the needed accounts into our chart of accounts. And we're going to make sure those are entered first into our QuickBooks Online. And those are essentially the category accounts on our profit and loss and balance sheet. Once those are entered, then we're going to start the process of creating an actual journal entry template in QuickBooks Online in order to capture these monthly sales. And for that portion of it, we're just going to talk about the sales and then the payment collection. And then after that, I'll introduce quickly, just in case this is needed in your case, we'll introduce cost of goods sold within Shopify and how to enter that as well into the same template. Then once you have the template created, then we'll go to this worksheet again and we'll start entering in the actual steps in order to do this on a monthly basis. And while we're doing that, we're actually going to be going into the journal entry and putting in actual real numbers for a month's sales in Shopify, so you can see what that looks like, an actual example of that. And then finally, once we do all that, I'm going to discuss what I like to call the back end of this workflow. And that'll make more sense later on, but there'll be some open-ended items, like the clearing accounts, for example. There'll be some open-ended items after this journal entry is entered. And then we'll go over kind of the back end of this workflow, what this is going to look like whenever you're working with your bank feed throughout the month. So the first step here, like I mentioned, we're just going to go through and we're going to try to find, at the best of our ability at this stage of the workflow here, we're going to try to find all the reports that are going to be needed in order to eventually enter these journal entries. And what I like to do, I just have these pinned right now so that it doesn't show my client information, but what I like to do is open up your Shopify and then duplicate 2 to 3 tabs just to have a few tabs open. Because what I found with Shopify is usually you need to have 2 to 3 potentially different reports in order to find all the numbers that are needed to enter these journal entries. It's not, at least not that I've found, all included in one report, which is okay. What we're going to do later on in this workflow is add where to find these reports in steps here in the worksheet. So we'll know at the beginning, every time we do this, to first open up all these reports that are needed. And you can even eventually bookmark these report screens as well. So you don't have to go in and find the reports every time. You can just click them in your bookmarks. But anyway, looking at the reports here, so I just went from home to analytics and reports here in Shopify. Depending on your situation, you may need to find different reports here or more reports. I'm just going to show you right now the reports that we're going to use for this particular video and example. So first is this sales over time report. So we're going to open up the sales over time report. And here it shows things like gross sales, discounts, returns, net sales, shipping, collected, things like that. This is going to be needed. And this shows obviously a lot of information. So what we want to capture whenever we're going to be creating this journal entry is I like to think of it as kind of the top portion and the bottom portion. The top portion being the collected amount. What I mean by that, so like this, I kind of think of it as like the sales and collected amount. So that includes things, of course, like sales and discounts and returns, and also things like tax collected. And then in the bottom portion, we're going to have the payment type portion of it. And what that's all going to balance each other out. And this will make sense a little bit later. But so next we need to find, so there we found kind of the sales and everything collected portion of it. Now we need to find the actual payment type portion of it. So we need to enter in for those clearing accounts that are eventually going to be deposited into our bank account. And for that, I like, again, in analytics and reports here, I like this payments report right here. So we can go ahead and click that. Now here we see different payment methods like Amazon, Shopify, Stripe, and PayPal. So we're going to be utilizing this report as well. So now that we have these reports, just kind of at least what we think for now, what we might be needing, now is a good stage, I think, to make sure that everything in our chart of accounts going into QuickBooks Online now is entered in our chart of accounts. And if it's not, to enter them. So you can either, so here in the gear icon, you can go here and then under lists or under settings, you have chart of accounts here. So looking at this first report here, so first we see the gross sales here. So let's go ahead and make sure that we have a sales account entered in our chart of accounts. So if you scroll down to income, or you can just search, we see a sales, and here you can decide if you just want to put it in the bulk sales category, or if you want to separate it out, maybe put like a Shopify or online sales category, anything like that. Just to keep it simple in this video, we're just going to keep it as sales. So that's in the chart of accounts. That's good. And then next we see discounts and returns. So let's go ahead and make sure that those are in here. So here we have a discounts given, and it's an income account. So we do want to make this an income account. We're just going to debit it and make it a negative. And then we have returns or refunds. Let's make sure that's in our chart of accounts. Yeah, we also have refunds as an income account. So that's good. So everything so far we have in our chart of accounts. And then we have shipping. So we have the shipping income in this particular case. And here we also have a shipping income account. And then we have tax. So in this case, we're going to make this a tax. We're going to make it a liability. So we're going to enter it whenever we're collecting the sales tax from Shopify. We're going to enter it as a liability in our balance sheet. And then we'll talk about the back end, but whenever we pay it, that's when we're going to lower the liability. So we want to make sure that we have some sort of sales tax liability entered into our chart of accounts here. So we have all our chart of accounts in this end. Now we can start discussing the payments portion of it. And this might be a little confusing until we wrap everything up here, but there's two things that you need to think about on the payment side of things. And we might as well start talking about it now because we're going to need to have all these entered into our chart of accounts. So the first thing you need to think about, and especially in this stage, is if these payment methods like this, if they're separate deposits into your bank account. And here's what I mean. Let's say like Stripe, for example. So we have these Stripe payments collected that is included in our Shopify sales. If these Stripe payment collected, if they're separated separately into our bank account, so if you look at our bank account bank feed or its deposits, if you have separate Stripe deposits going in there from these sales, then we need to create a separate Stripe clearing account in this particular case. Same with Shopify. Obviously, we need to create a Shopify clearing account as well. If things like this, so we have like Shop Pay installments payment type, and then we have the Shopify payments. Let's say, for example, that the Shop Pay installments are included in the regular Shopify deposits that are already being put into our bank account. If that's the case, then we won't need to create a separate Shop Pay clearing account on our chart of accounts because it's included in these deposits here. Same with PayPal. So in this particular case, we're having separate PayPal deposits into a PayPal account. So you want to have a separate account for that. And Amazon as well. Amazon is going to be separate in this particular case. There's separate Amazon deposits going into our bank account, and it's not included in the Shopify payments. So again, we need to make a separate clearing account for that. So in this particular case, we need to have a clearing account or some sort of asset account on our balance sheet for Amazon, PayPal, Shopify, not Shop Pay because it's included in Shopify in this case, and Stripe. So these are going to be asset accounts. And Shopify is going to be a clearing account. Stripe's going to be a clearing account. PayPal, we can make kind of a bank account or just a regular PayPal asset account because it's a separate account that's being deposited into, not directly into the bank account. And Amazon as well. So we have these four that we need to make sure that we have in our chart of accounts. Also included in all 4 of these, so we want to have the asset account for all 4 of these payment types. Also, we want to have for each of these payment types that are taking separate merchant fees, we also want to have a merchant fees account for them. If you want to just make it one merchant fees expense account for all 4 of these, you definitely can. In this case, we're going to separate them all out. So we're going to create an Amazon payments merchant fee expense account. We're going to create a Shopify merchant fee expense account, and we're going to create a Stripe one as well, and PayPal if I didn't mention that. So what we're going to do now is go into a chart of accounts, create 4 different accounts, asset accounts for these payment types, and 4 different merchant fee expenses as well. So if you go back to our chart of accounts here, let's see if we have any of these entered already. Okay, so we don't have anything for Shopify. So we're going to go new here, and this is going to be, again, a current asset on our balance sheet. Don't worry too much about the tax form section. So we're going to name this Shopify clearing account. And again, this is going to be a temporary kind of holding bucket on the balance sheet that we're eventually going to take these funds in bulk and slowly bring them over into our bank account whenever the deposits happen. Now let's enter the associated merchant fee for this. So we're going to go to expenses here, and then you can either create them all separately, or what we can do is create a bulk kind of parent merchant fee account, and I'll show you what that looks like. So let's just create, so first we're just going to create one expense, and it's just going to be called merchant fees. And then what we can do is create a new expense and save it under that account. And then these are kind of create sub accounts underneath that. And then here we'll put Shopify fees. And then here, if you look in the bottom here, this is what it's going to look like in your profit and loss report. You have the merchant fees expense category, and then it's kind of indented, and then you'll have the Shopify fees underneath. So that's what we're going to do for all the other fees as well. So next, looking at our payments report, we have PayPal. So in this particular case, let's say that we have a separate PayPal account that's going to be, these funds are going to be deposited into. They're not going to be deposited directly into our bank account. We'll just eventually, every now and then, transfer the funds from the PayPal to the bank account. So here we'll just have to make sure that we have, if we don't already, a PayPal asset account in our balance sheet. So it doesn't have to be a PayPal clearing account like we have set up here. We're actually just going to make it a PayPal. So you can set it up as a bank account if you want. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll set it up as a bank account. I mean, they're both assets on the balance sheet, so it doesn't really matter. But let's just say we have a PayPal bank account now set up on our chart of accounts. And then now, again, we're going to enter in the merchant fee expense. So under expenses, we'll put it under merchant fees again here. And then we'll call this PayPal fees. Next, we have Amazon payments here. So again, asset account, payments, clearing account. So go ahead and add that. Again, merchant fee, under merchant fees, Amazon fees, and the last one we have here is a Stripe. So this is the same thing. You figure out if you want to set it up as a bank account or a clearing account. They're both assets on the balance sheet, so it's not a huge deal in this particular case. We're just going to make it a clearing account. So in this particular case, you want to figure out if Stripe is going to be if the Stripe payments collected in Shopify are going to be deposited directly into your bank account separately, or if it's going to be deposited into your Stripe, a separate Stripe account, and then you'll eventually, whenever you want, transfer those over. So that's an important kind of distinction to know as well in this particular case. And then now one more merchant fee we're going to add here. So you see here merchant fees and how they're kind of listed out here. Then we have Stripe fees. All right, so now we have everything listed in our chart of accounts. We have everything in this side of things in terms of recording all the sales, discounts, returns, sales tax collected, shipping income, everything. Everything in kind of the top portion of the journal entry again, where it's kind of the sales and total collected amount. And then we have everything also in our chart of accounts to separate out all the payment type section of the journal entry. And what that involves again is for every separate kind of depositing channel in terms of like Shopify and Stripe and Amazon and PayPal that are being made, there's a separate asset account in our balance sheet reflecting those. And then with all of them that are reflecting those, there's also a merchant fees expense account in our chart of accounts reflecting those fees as well. So now that we have all of the accounts we believe at this stage, at least in our chart of accounts, let's go ahead and actually start the process of creating this journal entry template. And then as we're kind of creating it and as we go, we're also going to be working on creating the workflow list out as well. So you can reference it every month and go through a checklist. To do this, you actually go to recurring transactions in QuickBooks, even though we're setting up a template. If you make it unscheduled, it makes it a template. So the gear icon here in the top right, and then under list, you'll see recurring transactions here. And then we're going to hit new. And again, we're going to make it this journal entry. We're going to do a journal entry in this video. If you want to make it a sales receipt or an invoice, we're not going to go over that in this video. Watch my how to enter daily sales in QuickBooks Online video. There I kind of go over more so the relationship of the products and services and chart of accounts And then if you do it that way, you're going to be entering positives and negatives. So if you want to do that, watch one of those videos as reference after this to get that workflow. For now, like I said, we're just going to do a journal entry. So we're just going to name it Shopify Sales. And here we're going to make it unscheduled. That's what's actually going to make it a template. So it's not going to post anything. It's just going to be a template that we can use here in the future. All right, so now we can begin the process here. Again, the general kind of idea here is we're first going to be entering in all of the sales portion of things, and then we're going to enter in the bottom, the payment section. And this will hopefully make more sense as we go down here. That's also the order I like to do. Is first the sales, then the payment type. And what I also like to do, and that's why I like having these reports open when I'm doing this. This isn't mandatory, but what I like to do is put them in order that they show up in the reports. And this just makes it easier, but then it also limits the potential of mistakes I found. So if you put returns first and then discounts in your journal entry, sometimes without realizing it, you might copy and paste returns when they should have been discounts and vice versa. And there'll be no way of really knowing that was a mistake until looking at it later. So again, I like to put it in order. That's just my own personal preference. So first we have the gross sales here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put that in first. And again, this will be easy because we have everything already in our chart of accounts. So again, we just mentioned that we're just going to put it on the bulk sales account here. So let's just enter that. For now, we're just going to enter that. We're just going to enter the account in here. Next, looking here, we have discounts and then returns. So let's go ahead and add those again. Again, I like putting it in that order personally. So we got discounts given and we've got returns. In this case, I think it's called refunds. Yep. So net sales, don't worry about, because what net sales is crediting this and then debiting these two. So we're not actually going to have a net sales account. It's going to be, the net sales is going to be the sales entered as a credit and then the two debits added up. So then we have the shipping collected, and this is going to be just a straight up income in this particular case. So we've got shipping income. So the last thing we have here is tax, and this is tax collected. And again, we're going to be doing this right now as a liability in this stage. So we have the sales tax payable liability. So now we have everything in that stage, and then we have, so you have total sales here. This isn't necessarily total sales. In a way it is, but this also includes like things like sales tax collected and things. But anyway, so we have everything on this stage entered in the template. So now let's talk about the bottom portion of the template. The reason I like to break it down here is because you'll find whenever we're entering in this journal entry that these debits and credits are going to have a certain number. And then these payments are also going to match that essentially. So let's look at an example. Let's look at the month of May for both of these reports. So if you, and again, this will make more sense when we actually enter the numbers in the journal entry, but you see the total sales here. I like to think of this more so as the total amount collected. So you have the total amount collected in regards to sales and returns and sales tax and things. The total collected is $14,115.30 for the month of May. Now, if you look at this other report, and this is the net payments amount. So these are Shopify payment collected, Stripe payment collected, etc. It equals $14,115.30. So it's the same exact dollar amount in terms of the total collected and the total sales portion of it and the payment type collected. So it's the same amount. And that's going to reflect as well whenever we're entering in this journal entry. We're going to have the debits and credits that match in the top portion, and the debits and credits are going to exactly match as well on the payment type portion. And that's what allows this workflow to work in terms of following, accounting rules and things. But anyway, here's what's most important here. So again, there's two important distinctions to make whenever you're looking at the payment side of things. One of them we already discovered. And the first one is, again, whether there's separate deposit channels happening. And what's in this particular case, again, we discovered that Amazon, PayPal, Shopify, and Stripe, all four of them deposit separately, whether depositing into our bank account or depositing into its own separate account like PayPal, for example. So that's the first thing to determine. And we already have that determined. Now, the second part of it, and this is important, the second part of it is knowing at the merchant fee stage if it happens before the funds are deposited or after. And here's what I mean. You want to make sure, let's say Shopify, for example, it's important for you to understand, let's say you have $100 in sales for that day or $100 Shopify payment collected. It's important for you to know if the Shopify automatically keeps let's say $5 in this example, and then deposits $95 into your bank account, or if Shopify deposits the full $100 into your bank account, and then later on, let's say once a month, that's when they deduct all their fees for the month. It's really important for you in this stage to determine which one of those is the case for each of these different channels. because that's going to determine whether or not you include the merchant fees in this stage of things, and whether whenever you're calculating the total amount in the clearing account, whether it should be gross or net fees. Let's just go down as we go for the 4. Amazon payments. Let's say for them, let's say that they are depositing net fees. So again, if they collect $100, they keep $5 automatically as their portion of the fees, and they deposit $95 into your bank account. Let's say that's what we determined for Amazon. So because of that, what we're going to do is we're going to enter in both the Amazon clearing account into this template here, and then we're also going to add on the Amazon fees into this template as well. And the reason for that is we're going to be recording the fees at this stage of the sales entry process. Next, we have PayPal. So PayPal, the way sometimes PayPal works, in this particular case, this is how it's going to work. There'll be a separate PayPal account. Let's say it's linked up to a bank feed in your QuickBooks Online. And whenever those deposits are entering into the PayPal account, it accounts for those fees whenever you have the bank feed set up. And what I mean is that whenever you categorize those deposits, it shows the gross amount deposited, and then it subtracts and calculates the PayPal fees and adds that into your profit and loss. So in that case, we don't want to include the PayPal fees at this stage of things. It's going to be included whenever we're categorizing the deposits. So because of that, all we're going to be doing, and actually this should be a clearing account in this particular case. So all we want to do in this case is put in the funds into a PayPal clearing account, and we'll calculate the funds later on when they're being deposited. Next, we have Shopify, and let's say, again, Shopify is collecting the fees automatically before they deposit into our bank account. So again, we want to have Shopify clearing account and the fees, because we're going to enter those fees as we do the sales entry part of things. And then finally, we have Stripe. And the same thing with Stripe. We have the clearing account, and because they're taking their fees before they deposit, we're going to enter in the fees as well. So now we have what we believe to be all of the accounts into this journal entry template here. First, I just want to go over this stuff, and then we'll talk about cost of goods sold after. I don't want to throw too much at you all at the beginning here, even though this is already a lot. But we will discuss cost of goods sold if that's needed after we go through this example first. So now what we can do is just go through, and I like to just put in numbers here. So you should, in my opinion, you should know, if you're doing your own bookkeeping for your small business, you should understand and know debits and credits and whether they increase or decrease income accounts, liability accounts, expense accounts, things like that. And if you don't, that's what I would suggest doing. I have a course for that, a full bookkeeping course where I really go in depth with this kind of stuff, and specifically journal entries and debits and credits and things. I am going to go over it in this video of what you should be doing. But again, I think it's really important if you're doing this kind of stuff to get a full understanding of what you're actually doing and not just kind of copying a video. But here I like to just put in numbers of whether they're going to be debited or credited. And you can just put in ones, and at the end you can just balance it out. So the sales here, it's an income account. We're going to be increasing the income account, so it's going to be a credit. These discounts, givens, and refunds accounts, they're also income accounts, and we want to have them show up as a negative on our profit and loss, as a negative income. So in order to do that, they're going to be debits. The shipping income, again, we're going to increase the income. It's going to be a credit. Sales tax liability, it's a liability account. We want to increase the liability when we're entering it in this stage, so it's going to be a debt or a credit. The clearing account, so we want to be increasing these clearing accounts in this stage when we're entering in the sales, and in their current asset accounts where they're set up in the balance sheet. So to increase those, we want to debit them. So that's going to be the case for all of these clearing accounts. And then finally, we just have the fees. And the fees accounts are expense accounts. In order to increase the expenses, we want to debit those as well. And then it won't let you save the template unless these equal. So I'll just put in, so we need 6 more. So I'll just put in 7 here, just to make sure that the totals here in the bottom are equal. So this is just a way that you can remember whenever you're putting in these entries. Again, you should, in my opinion, you should know this, but this way, whenever you're copying, pasting things, you'll just know whether it should be a debit or a credit as you go. Okay, so now we have the description side of things here. And what I personally like to do is I like to put in the description column here, I like to first put where in these reports you can find them. And then I also like to put notes if you have to do some sort of calculations, which we will specifically at the bottom portion here whenever we're dealing with fees and payment accounts. So let's go through and do this here. So we have the description first. First, we just have sales, and that's just gross sales. So I'll just put in the description gross sales. And then we have discounts given, and that's just discounts. And then we have the returns here as well. So we'll just put discounts returns. And there's no sort of calculations at this stage. All we have to do is just copy and paste. Now we've got shipping income, and that's just shipping here in the report. So I like to put that as well. And then also too, if you want, just so you know, you can put in whatever you want, but if you want to put in credit here, if you want to put in debit here, just so you get another place to remember whether it be debit or credited, you can do that in this stage as well. So you have sales tax payable next, and that's just put in as tax here. So we'll just put tax. Okay, so now we have the payment side of things, looking at this report here. What we're going to be doing in the case where these payment types are collecting payment, keeping the fees, and then depositing the net amount into your bank account. So again, if they collect $100, they keep $5, deposit $95 into your bank account. What you need to do in this stage of things is you need to, whenever you're putting in the clearing account, you need to take the total amount collected and then minus the fees from that. And the reason for that is again, you have $100 collected from Amazon, for example, and they take $5 in fees. What you would want to put as the debit in the clearing account is $95 because that's ultimately what's going to be deposited into your bank account. So that's net fees. And then so you'll take the $5 in fees in this case. So what you would want to do here, so in the description, you just put, let's see what it's called here, Amazon payments. So you can take Amazon payments, net fees. And what that means is after fees. So you subtract fees from it. And then here's just straightforward, we have the fees here. And this will hopefully again make sense once we actually go through an example here. So here we want to make sure that we have net fees. Now PayPal, again, we discussed that whenever they get deposited into the PayPal account separately in a separate bank feed in QuickBooks, at that stage is when we actually take out the full PayPal clearing amount gross and then calculate automatically at that stage the PayPal fees. So because of that, we don't want to enter in or subtract any PayPal fees at this stage. We want to just make them gross fees. So the full amount that we've collected via PayPal, we want to enter in. Doesn't matter what the fees are at this stage, we're not going to subtract them out. Shopify clearing, again, let's say that they're taking the fees before they deposit, so it's going to be net fees. Same with Stripe, let's say it's net fees. And also too, at this stage, we can see here, this is where we can find the total net payments that we've collected for that month, but we don't see any fees here. So we need to know for 3 of these accounts, we need to know what the fees are whenever we're entering these. And so here's where you need to open up potentially a few more reports in order to figure out what these fees are. So let's duplicate a third tab here in Shopify. And then what I found is that if you go for Shopify fees, for example, if you go under finances here, then you see this payouts report. So here we see the fees listed for the Shopify payments. So we can keep this report open for now. And in our journal entry for the Shopify fees, and this report is called payouts. We can put something like total fees, payouts report. And then, so let's say, for example, for Stripe, let's say that we have a separate Stripe portal like this. And then what you can do is you can run reports and then the balance report, which is showing here. And then here it shows the Stripe fees listed. So again, we can just put Stripe balance report. And again, that shows the Stripe fees that was taken out for the month. And let's say we have a separate Amazon portal that shows the fees. So again, at this stage, you want to make sure for each of these payment methods that you know where to find the fees as well, and then make a description here showing just a note for yourself in the future of where to find those fees. And then here you can put the name. It's kind of like the payee. I always like doing this as well. So for a lot of them, let's just say we can add a new Shopify customer. So that can be for things like the sales, discounts given, refunds. And there's a lot of reasons for this. I'm not going to get into it in this video, but different reports and things you can run. It's really important to have these, really helpful, I should say, to have these listed like this. So then we can have an Amazon vendor. It doesn't really matter too much for the clearing accounts in terms of having a name here, but definitely for the fees, you want to have the vendor listed. And then if you have any sort of different location or store or anything, you can add it here, but we're not going to do that in this particular case. So now, again, we're not talking about cost of goods sold yet. So now we have the template actually created here of entering these Shopify sales. So again, we have the top portion here, which is kind of the sales and everything collected portion. And then we have the bottom portion here with the clearing accounts and the fees. And now what I would like to do is simultaneously add in a step-by-step checklist for your future use. And at the same time, we're going to actually go in and enter in some numbers into this template. And I suggest you do the same. Run a month report for all these reports and everything. just to make sure everything balances out. And then also at the same time, adding in this checklist so you can reference it and do it quickly on a month-to-month basis. We're looking at our recurring transactions list again. We see this Shopify Sales template, so we're going to go ahead and hit use. And let's say that we're going to enter in all the sales for the month of May this year. So we can go back, and I just like putting in for the last day of the month. I just like putting it as that date, and then I'll show up in your profit and loss and everything, your balance sheet on the last day of May. Just name it whatever, Shopify Sales. So here in the worksheet, let's say that let's just do it like this. I like doing it in a worksheet because in case you need to move up and down steps, it's a lot easier, but you can use it in whatever. You can use it in Microsoft Word, whatever you want to do this, but let's just put the step number here. I don't know how many it'll be, but we'll just put in a bunch here. And then I just like inserting here some checkboxes and just scroll down like this. So that way when you're going through it every month, you can easily just check as you go. And then when you're done, you can just uncheck them. And then here we can open this up. This will be the steps. So the first steps whenever you're doing this on a month-to-month basis is first what I like to do is just opening up all the reports that you're going to need. And I like, as best as possible, I also like opening up the reports in order that we're going to be listing them into the journal entry here. As we mentioned before, the first report here for these sections here of entering in the sales and discounts and refunds and things, that's going to be this report here. And what this report was is Shopify, analytics, reports, sales over time. And then you would put it for most likely last month. But again, in this case, we're going to put it, in this example, we're going to put it for May. So what I would do in the worksheet here is for step one, I would go open report, or let's say open sales over time report. And then I'll put Shopify. Actually, let me back up a little bit here. And this is why I like doing it like this, where I can just move this down. The first thing I actually like to do, log into Shopify, and then duplicate 3 tabs, or however many tabs you're going to need for the reports. You can make this 2, 3, 4, however many reports you need in Shopify. I log into Shopify, duplicate all the tabs so they're already opened up, and then you go into the first tab and open the first report. So we got the sales over time report, which is Shopify, analytics, reports, sales over time last month is going to be the date range. So that's step one, is opening up that report. And then we have the payments, because again, we're looking at our journal entry here. So that report there is going to bring us all the way to here. So now we'll start entering in the payments here. And for the payments section, we need a few reports open. So the first report is just this payment section here. So we're going to go for step 3. Again, this is just going to be clicking on the second tab in Shopify. We're going to go to reports, payments, the date to last month. And then here, so now this will show all the gross payment type collected. So now we need to find all the fees. So first, the Shopify fees. Again, this was in Shopify, finances, payouts. So let's go into our checklist here. We've got Shopify, payments, payouts. And then again, filter the date to last month. And we're going to go through an example. This is just creating the checklist here. So then we have, so next we can open Stripe, because now again, we need the Stripe fees as well for this portion. Because again, we're just going down here and figuring out what we're all going to need here. So we have the Stripe portion of it. We can open Stripe, then reports, balance report, again, date as last month. And this is going to show our Stripe fees collected amount. And we don't need any fees known for PayPal at this stage. So the last one is just Amazon. So we can open up our Amazon merch account report for last month. And again, that's going to show the Amazon fees collected. So at this stage, let's start to go through, and we're going to go back and forth. We're going to actually create the first journal entry, and then we're going to edit or add or whatever we need in the steps as we go. And then say now, so first we'd open up all the reports, and then we have open up QBO, QuickBooks Online, and then click on the template for Shopify Sales. That would be the next step. And then we can put enter last day of month. Now let's start to go through these steps. We have Shopify, we already have it logged in. We have 3 tabs opened up. So then we have so first we're going to look up the sales over time report. So we got reports, sales over time. Again, usually we'd make this just last month right here. We're in this case going to make it for May. So now we have that report opened up. So let's go ahead and check that. Now we got the payments. So again, reports, under analytics, we've got payments, usually be last month. We're going to make it May. We got that. We verified that the amounts match. So we've got that checked off. Next is the payouts, because we need to know what the merchant fees are. So we've got finances, payouts, and then you can add a filter or the payout date. Again, last month, in this case, we're going to do custom, and we're going to make it from May to May, May 1st to end of May. And again, so we have these fees here. That's going to show all the fees for the month of May. So we did that. Next, we've got Stripe. So we got log into Stripe, reports, balance report. So now we got this report opened up for May. And again, this just shows the Stripe fees that we're going to need when we're entering in this section here. So we got that. I can't do it in this video, but let's say we opened up the Amazon merch report in order to get those fees. And then, so we have QuickBooks. We went into the template and we made it for the last day of the month. So now we've got that. So now we can start entering in the template itself. And what I personally like to do, I like having stuff like this in this checklist, a separate checklist. But I don't like adding in the checklist like entering in gross sales, discounts, because this I like having just in the description here in terms of the actual entering in of the journal entry here. So now let's start entering this real numbers here and see what we come up with as we go. So first we have the sales. Again, it's going to be credited, and this is going to be the gross sales of everything collected in Shopify. So what we're going to do, and we have all the reports in the section here. We have all the reports that we're going to be needed already opened up, ready to go. So the first report here is this report here, the sales over time. And again, this is for May. So we're just going to copy and paste gross sales here because it says gross sales. That's going to be a credit. Next, we have discounts and returns. So you go here, copy the discounts. You don't need to put in the negative there. So we have the discounts there. We got the returns. And what I'm doing, I'm just hitting Command and then C and V to copy and paste. Now we have the shipping income, which is going to be a credit. And this is right here. And see how, again, how we're going along the report here. So it's just as simple as copy and paste. I know this is a long video and I'm going over a bunch of stuff with setting everything up. But whenever you're doing this monthly, it's actually really easy. All you do is just go through these reports and then you just copy and paste kind of as you go. It's really easy once you get this down. So again, we got the shipping, then we got the sales tax liability for this $1,572 in tax we collected. So we're going to credit that. All right, so now we have that kind of top portion completed now. And now we're going to start looking at the payment portion of things. So first we have so we'll just go down as we go. So next we have the Amazon payments collected. So first we need to know the gross amount of Amazon payments that were collected. So we have this report again here, which is the payments collected for the month. And what this shows here is and what we're eventually going to do is we're going to export this to Excel to add everything together, like for Shopify. But for now, if we just see Amazon, it's only one line. So we see the net collected for Amazon is $350. So we can put that in there. Even though I know we're going to be subtracting the fees, I first just like to put the gross amount to keep it listed here. So here we have the gross amount of Amazon collected. Now let's say we looked at the Amazon merchant report, and let's say they took $10 in fees. So again, what's ultimately going to be deposited into our bank account is going to be a separate Amazon deposit for $340 because they took their fees. So what we're going to do, because that's net fees, so you have this $350, we're going to subtract $10. So if you do subtract 10 within the journal entry here and then tab over, it automatically calculates that for you. So we have Amazon payments net fees of $340. Again, even though this is showing $350 total collected, and then we have the Amazon fees, we're going to put that in as $10. Because again, at this stage, what we're doing is we're entering in the Amazon merchant fees, and then we're entering in a clearing account for $340. That's ultimately going to be deposited for $340 into our bank account, and then we're going to clear that out. So next we have PayPal. And again, what we mentioned was that we're going to take the full gross amount of PayPal. We don't need to enter in the fees at this stage. So what I like to do here is export into the current page into an Excel sheet in order to be able to add all these together and open that up. And you can add that as well if you want, as before you even start this stage, you can add that into your workflow here, into your checklist. So let's say we have the payments last month, and then you can put export to Excel. Then we're going to do the same thing later on with this payouts, but for now, let's just worry about the payments here. Actually, no, let's do that also right now for the payouts. Export to Excel. So looking at this screen here, so this shows, you can just quickly work with this sheet here. We're going to be doing the net payments here, and we have the payment methods listed here. So what we're going to do here, so for example, for PayPal we're doing right now, all I want to do is just add these two together. I just like using it in this Excel sheet, especially for Shopify when they're really listed out like this. You may not have to. It depends on what this report looks like for you. This is only a few lines. You may just want to use a calculator and just add them together. But for something like this, I just like exporting to Excel. But anyway, we can do equals the sum of these two, which are the two PayPal amounts. So here we have the total PayPal amount collected. And then again, just copy and paste from this report into the template here. So here we have the gross full PayPal amount collected. So that's entered there. Now we have the Shopify clearing account. We go back to the same report here. So first what I want to figure out is the gross total Shopify amount collected. So again, we can just do equals the sum here. We can take all the Shopify payments, which starts here and goes down to here. Click that. Now here we have the total amount of Shopify account collected. Again, even though we're doing net, I like to just copy and paste it into this report at this stage. We're gonna subtract out the fees later. Next, we want to figure out the Shopify fees. So this is actually a separate report as we gone over, because in this report it doesn't show the fees, but in this report it does. So here we have the payouts. So here's all the Shopify payouts. This is only Shopify payouts throughout May. So we ran this report already, and again, I just want to export this to Excel for the simple reason of being able to, because it doesn't show the total fees in the bottom here, of just being able to quickly add these fees together to find the total fees for May. And again, we added that into the workflow here of opening up this payments report we're talking about, or payouts, I should say, and then exporting to Excel. So here we have all the Shopify payouts with all the fees. So I'm just going to do equals the sum of this whole column, and then we've got the fees amount right here. So again, this is the Shopify fees for the payouts for the month of May. So we're going to copy and paste that into the Shopify fees. And then what I like to do, because this is gross, is go back, click this, hit minus, paste again with Command V, and tab over. And what that did is, again, that took the gross Shopify clearing account collected and subtracted out the fees, and then we added in the fees here. Because this is ultimately for the month, this amount right here is what's ultimately going to be deposited into our bank account, because Shopify is collecting those fees. And then finally, we have Stripe. So again, what I always like to do is first put in the gross here and then subtract out the fees later. So we're going back to this. So again, this is that report where it shows all the payment type collected. And these last four, we see the Stripe amounts here and the net payments. So we're going to do equal sum. We're going to add in the last four. That's the amount of Stripe collected. We're going to put that in here, even though we're going to subtract out the fees later. We open up the Stripe report we already have opened. We have this balance summary already listed out for May. And also too, it's cool, you can verify. So we have the Stripe payment clearing of $25.0383, which is the amount of the total listed out here in Shopify. And then if you look at the Stripe report, it's the same exact amount that's put here. So that's a good thing to verify as well. But anyway, we have the fees here of $92.71 in this report. So we're going to go back, we're going to copy that, go back into our template in QuickBooks, and we're going to put that in as the fees. And then we're going to subtract that out from the Stripe payment clearing account. Now you'll see, and I know this is a lot, but I promise you, once you start getting into this rhythm, and especially that's why I like having a checklist like this. So essentially all you'll do is you'll go into your checklist, you'll duplicate some Shopify tabs, you'll open up, if you need to, Stripe or PayPal or whatever else you need, you'll open up all the tabs, run all the reports that are listed out exactly where to find them, run all the reports, export some stuff to Excel. Then essentially all you're doing when you go into your template is you're just copying and pasting things. It's really pretty straightforward. You're just kind of copy and pasting as you go, running through these reports. So that so far is the workflow here. And you'll see here, so we have the debits and credits total columns here. You'll see that they match, which they need to. So that's good. And that means that we're doing something right here. And what I personally like to do, I personally just like to delete all these descriptions. You obviously don't have to. I like to delete them. I like to keep them in the template, but then delete them before I save, just to keep things clean. But now what I think I'd like to do is move forward again and talk about a little bit what we actually did. And then more importantly, talk about the back end, what I like to call the back end of this workflow a bit. And then after that, I'll briefly finish with discussing cost of goods sold. If you're doing cost of goods sold within Shopify, what that looks like. So let's go back and look. I'm just going to create another tab here in QuickBooks Online. Let's look at what we actually just did there. Because again, I think it's really important to actually understand what you're doing and not just kind of copy and pasting things off the video like this. So we can look at the actual journal entry in one screen. And then I like looking at transaction journals to see like what the actual debits and credits are. So at this stage, what I like to do is think about what I like to call the back end of the workflow. So you want to see what's open-ended so far, and then you'll want to know whenever you're working with your bank feed of what you need to do in kind of the second stage of this. So let's just go by line by line here and see if anything's open-ended or closed out. So first we have the sales account. I would consider just as closed out. You entered in the Shopify sales for the month, so there's nothing else you need to do in regards to this. Same with discounts given and refunds. They're entered for what they were in Shopify. There's nothing else you need to do here. Again, shipping income, that's closed out. You entered in your shipping income for the month for Shopify. That's all you need to do. So here we see sales tax payable. This is open-ended. What you did whenever you entered this, again, this is a liability account. You credited it, you increased it. So what you did is you said, I collected $1,572 in tax, sales tax for the month of May or last month, whenever. So I now have on my balance sheet a liability of $1,572 on my balance sheet of sales tax owed. And you'll see here, looking at the journal entry, the sales tax payable was credited for $1,572. So again, that's a liability on your balance sheet. So what you need to know is whenever you go, because what you'll eventually do is pay the sales tax, right? So what you need to know is that whenever you pay this sales tax out of your bank account or out of whatever, you need to lower this liability. So what I like to do is create bank rules. I'm not going to go over bank rules in this video because I already talked way too long in this topic, but I have other videos regarding that. But what you can create a bank rule if you like, or make a note somewhere that you just know, again, that whenever this sales tax is paid, that you're going to debit this same exact liability account. So you're just going to increase the liability in the sales entry portion of it. Whenever it's paid, you're going to decrease the same liability. This is where mistakes start to happen. Whenever that sales tax payment's made and you're going through your bank feed or whatever, and you calculate it or you categorize it as a sales tax expense, that's wrong, because then you're increasing expenses, but you're also increasing liability. It's never going to decrease. Or if you decrease a sales tax liability that's different from this exact liability account that you're entering at this stage, that's wrong as well. You want to make sure and note here that whenever the sales tax is made, you're debiting the same exact sales tax payable account that was included in the original sale entry. Now, usually here, there's always back-end stuff here regarding the payment portion of the things here. So we have Amazon Payments Clearing Account. We entered in the merchant fees, so that's closed out. And now all we need, what we have here is we have a debit to this Amazon Payments Clearing Account, which is going to show up in our balance sheet. So what we need to do, whenever these Amazon deposits are being made into our bank account, we need to transfer those over, or debit and credit this Amazon Payment Clearing Account over into the bank account. So again, a lot of the times you just make this a bank rule of just saying whenever Amazon deposits funds to the bank account, create it as a transfer from Amazon Deposits Clearing Account to the checking account, regular bank account. That's the back end here. For the PayPal, we didn't enter any fees yet. So in this back end of the workflow, we know that whenever these funds are being deposited into the PayPal account, then we need to take out the gross PayPal clearing account amount from this account, and then also we need to add in the PayPal merchant fees. The Stripe and Shopify, same thing. Whenever those particular avenues get deposited into our bank account, we need to categorize them as transfers from the clearing account to the bank account, and the fees have already been accounted for. So what you can do over time is, once you've done this for a while and you go through these processes, is start to look at these registers of these clearing accounts. Look at the Amazon clearing account, Shopify, whatever, PayPal, and make sure that they're eventually, every once in a while, going back down to zero, because that's what should be happening. You should be decreasing these clearing accounts throughout the month whenever these transfers are being made, and then bringing them back up to zero whenever this sale entry is made. And again, that's something that you can audit as you go throughout the months. So now that's kind of just quick discussion of the back end of this workflow. And again, the main thing here is just is fully understand what's open-ended here, what's going to happen in the future, and make sure they're linked together. That's where that stage there is where I see a lot of mistakes happening. That stage, and also the stage here of figuring out the fees and what should actually be debited in this clearing account. But now I want to just quickly discuss the cost of goods sold. So there's a few things that could be happening here. Let's say for Shopify, for example, if you're selling like merchandise, like t-shirts or whatever, and it depends on your entire workflow of how you're handling cost of goods sold. You could potentially, whenever you're buying these things, t-shirts or whatever, you could at that time just be categorizing as cost of goods sold whenever you pay for it. If that's the case, then you don't have to be entering any cost of goods sold at this stage whenever you're entering in the sales. However, if you're entering it as an inventory asset account, so let's say you have a Shopify, whatever merchandise, whatever inventory asset account on your balance sheet, and that's what you're increasing whenever you're making these purchases, Then at this stage, whenever you're entering in the sales like this, is whenever you need to be calculating and entering the cost of goods sold and lowering that inventory asset account. So first off, obviously it's important to know which one you're doing and if this is needed. But if it is needed, I want to briefly go over it in this video of how you can do that. And you can do it separately. You can do a separate journal entry and just add it as another checklist to your workflow, or you can even just add it to the same exact template that we've been using. So let's go ahead and edit this, because it's going to be the same. What you're going to be doing is adding in 2 lines, and it's going to be the same debit and credit. So you can very well add it to the same exact report. And it might be nice to kind of review when you're entering in your cost of goods sold, making sure that it makes sense with the sales. If you have 10,000 in sales with 12,000 in cost of goods sold, then you could realize that something's wrong. So what we're going to do here, so first, same thing, make sure we have everything first in our chart of accounts. So first, if you're doing this already, you'd most likely already have an inventory asset account that you're putting these purchases into. So let's just go ahead and create one really quickly now. And then same thing with cost of goods sold. So we already have a cost of goods sold account in here. And if you want to separate it out, of course, you can do that too. So essentially what you're doing, so let's just go into the template again here. So essentially what you would do, so everything else would be the same up to this point. What you would do whenever you're entering in this template is you would add 2 more lines here. So first you would add the cost of goods sold line, and then you're going to add in the inventory asset line. And the cost of goods sold is going to be a debit, inventory is going to be a credit. So the debit is going to increase the cost of goods sold, the credit to the inventory is going to lower your inventory. You find the report in Shopify that you need for this. In this particular case, we can go to analytics, reports, and then there's a cost of goods sold report right here. So you can add that in the workflow, just Shopify, analytics, reports. We can just put COGS last month. So you can add that in the workflow to open up that report. And then I'm not going to go over the report specifically because it's going to show too much of my client info. It would be hard for me to blur it all out. Yeah, but essentially you would look at that report and you would find the dollar amount of the total cost of goods sold calculated in Shopify for that month. And I'm not going to get into too much of this, but in order for this to work, you need to make sure that your products and things in Shopify have the correct associated cost with them, at the very least as close as possible, because you can bring this to actual year-end doing, or quarterly or whatever, doing physical inventory counts. But again, that's not what this video is really about. Yeah, so I would just save the template there. And then when you're entering that, let's go back into the actual journal entry we created. Essentially what you do, let's say in this particular case, let's say that the cost of goods sold was $4,000. So what you do, again, is just debit the cost of goods sold by $4,000, credit the inventory by $4,000, and in the template, you probably want to add to the Shopify name here, but yeah, you'll see you would just add in the cost of goods sold in this stage. Again, you can just you can make this a separate step, separate journal entry if you want, or just add it to the end of the bottom of this, because it still remains the same in terms of the debits and credits, because you're just adding 2 lines that match. So at this stage is where you would add that. So yeah, that's everything I have for this workflow. I hope I covered everything. I know this video seems like it's going to be a lot longer than what I originally anticipated, but again, I wanted to cover everything, and I really wanted to make sure to really go over in detail kind of what exactly we're doing here, because I didn't want to just quickly go over this is how you do it and hope you just kind of copy and paste me, because it is different for different businesses and situations. And it is really important for certain steps in this process to really understand what you're doing here. Because if you mess up in this stage at any point in terms of not understanding when fees are taken out, putting in the wrong amount into the clearing accounts here, and even in the back end stuff of not calculating or not categorizing sales tax payments in the same exact way that they were being entered originally. These are mistakes I see all the time. And if you do this wrong from the beginning, they really start to add up and accumulate over time. But like I said, trust me in the fact that even though this is a pretty big undertaking and process of getting this all set up now and going through this video and everything, once this is all set up and you go through a few months of it and you have things like this checklist here, then it's really, like I said, it's really just straightforward. It's just opening up a bunch of tabs, opening up all the reports you need, and then opening up this template. And then really at that point, you're just copying, pasting, you're just going down the report here. At that point, it really becomes a pretty relatively easy and straightforward process.